So good afternoon, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us here at the HHREC podcast. I am your host. My name is Robert Williams. I am the MHSA, or Mental Health Services Act Program Manager here at the Health and Human Resource Education Center, or better known as HHREC. If you guys can please tell me a little bit about yourself, your organization, and we'll move forward from there.
Great. Hi, good afternoon. Thanks so much for having us. My name is Madeline Bear. I'm the founding director of El Tímpano. And my background is as a journalist. I've worked in youth media, community media, public radio, international correspondence, and human rights. And for the past 6 years, I've been working on building El Tímpano as a local civic media organization designed with and for Latino and Mayan immigrants. And I'm joined here with my colleague, Deanna.
Hi, thank you for having us. My name is Deanna Ballington. I work as the Senior Manager of Civic Partnership and Growth. I've been with El Tímpano a little over a year. My background is in mainly nonprofit. I've worked with just helping underserved communities for most of my career, but I have a background in finance and banking. But prior to coming to El Tímpano, I worked for CDFI, which stands for Community Development Financial Institution.
That's awesome. Again, I'm so happy you guys were able to make it. And the next question is, why did you start El Tímpano?
Yeah, I could probably talk to you all day about that. There are so many different reasons, so many kind of personal and professional paths that directed me towards this journey. But to try to keep it short, a few reasons are, I'm from Oakland, was born and raised, and got my start in media at 8 years old in a youth media organization. And if you know anything about youth media, you know that it not only trains youth in, asking questions and doing interviews and research, but also really trains you to analyze the media and really ask questions about, who does media serve? Whose stories are reflected in the media? Whose are left out? And those are questions that have always followed me throughout my career. I've never seen, Oakland is such a diverse community, and yet, I've never seen that diversity of Oakland or of any of the other cities where I've lived really reflected in the media. And so when I moved back to Oakland with my husband about 6 years ago, I saw that Latino immigrants were now the fastest growing communities within the city of Oakland, which is true of so much of the Bay Area. And yet you wouldn't necessarily know that simply by consuming local media, because you don't really see their stories, their voices reflected in the media. And then at the same time, there's really very few options that for quality local journalism that are designed really for Spanish-speaking communities. And so, those are a few of the different reasons that I started El Tímpano. I'll also just add, I'm not Latina, I'm not an immigrant. I married into a Latino immigrant family, and that experience gave me a closer perspective into the inequities in local media, and allowed me to really see closer up just kind of the impact of, what it means when you don't have quality information and news on issues that are important to you. What that means in terms of just kind of living with a sense of fear or uncertainty, or simply making poor decisions based on not having sufficient information on those issues.
Yeah, no, and I completely resonate with, at least, growing up in a Latino or a Latin-based family. I grew up in La Mission in San Francisco, and I moved to the East Bay. I want to say like 6 or 7 years ago, and seeing the diversity here, and seeing how there are a lot of strong Latin-based communities. But again, where's that voice? Where's that community or sense of community? So thank you so much for at least giving the Latin population or Latin community in the East Bay a voice to have. Now I'm going to move over to Deanna, and I kind of want you to tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and then, kind of how you started in banking, because that is like super left.
Yeah, my background isn't in media, but I went to school for accounting. I thought I wanted like the big corner office and just like pump numbers all day, but I found out quickly that I didn't. And I actually kind of just rolled into working at a nonprofit. I actually lived in Colorado, moved back to California, and started working for a nonprofit called Brighter Beginnings. And very quickly, I saw that I just really enjoyed giving back, right? It was very rewarding. And my parents are immigrants from Guatemala. And just helping underserved communities and being out there and making sure that they are receiving the resources that they need was just very gratifying to me. But also like reflecting back in banking, right? There is a lot of communities that are targeted. Unfortunately, those are the ones that are left out, right? Whether they're not getting the information, they're not getting the education or the resources, right? And they become targets, and predators like prey on them because they know it's easy. So in banking, a lot of times, like for example, there's a lot of communities that have ITIN numbers. Immigrants don't have social security numbers, so they get assigned an individual tax ID number. And then sometimes they just feel like they're left at that, right? Like I could just, I'm here, I work, I could pay taxes, but they're not necessarily getting anything in return. And a lot of them didn't know that they can actually establish credit, right? They can buy a home if they have an ITIN number. So those types of things just really kind of resonated with me. Just there's a lot of information out there that a lot of people don't have, and which really kind of drove me to when I saw a position at El Tímpano, I'm like, wow, like there is an organization that's actually doing this, and that's going to amplify the voices for these individuals, but also help them receive the resources. And that's what really kind of, I think I have a personal kind of connection with their mission, right? Because I grew up with immigrant parents, but I also knew the value of making sure these communities get the proper information, especially in their primary language, right? They're already going through enough difficulties, like when they arrive.
Yeah, and that language barrier definitely is one of, I think, the number one barriers even I see as a mental health advocate. When we have these sessions with the county, or when we have these sessions in these different communities, language barrier is like the number one that we get hit with all the time. And it's not to say that, hey, we don't have the resources. It's, hey, we don't have the people who are technically qualified to even sit in that position in order to be that resource. So I completely understand you from that standpoint. Now, back to Madeline. What is El Tímpano at its core?
Yeah, so El Tímpano is Spanish for eardrum, and our mission is to inform, engage, and amplify the voices of the Bay Area's Latino and Mayan immigrants. All of our strategies are really designed from the ground up, really designed in collaboration with the communities that we serve. And so, prior to launching, prior to even really determining that mission, or even having a website, what I did was just kind of go out into the community and meet people, sit down with leaders of community-based organizations to hear from them, what do you see as, are there gaps in news and information that really serves the communities that you're working with? And if they had told me no, I would have gone home and found something else to do. But every single person said yes, like there are huge gaps for exactly the reasons that the two of you just outlined. And, I'm so grateful. So many of them, extended a hand to work with me to really try to address these gaps. And so from there, we then developed a survey and just went out and tabled and went to churches and libraries and food distributions to ask residents, primarily in East Oakland, what are the issues that are most important to you? Where do you get news and information on those issues? What do you want to see in local media? And so that's how we really started to design our strategies, our approach, our editorial priorities in a way that's really shaped by Latino and Mayan immigrants.
Okay. So just a rough number, how many do you guys serve currently as far as subscribers or residents that do receive your guys' messaging?
Yeah, so our primary platform is a text messaging platform, and we designed that because so many people told us, I don't have a home computer, I don't have home internet, I forgot my email password a long time ago, but nearly everyone has a phone, right? So we have a platform of local information, resource navigation, and participatory storytelling, and all of that is through simple text messages, just like you might get from your mom or friend. And right now we have nearly 3,000 people who are subscribed. Primarily they're based in East Oakland, but that number is really expanding and has really expanded well beyond Oakland's borders. So we also have a growing number of subscribers in Contra Costa County, in Southern Alameda County. And that's why we expanded our mission. You know, when I started El Tímpano, it was really just to serve folks in Oakland, but we were seeing that our subscribers were going well beyond Oakland. And we were also hearing from community partners who said, you know, when are you coming out to Hayward or to, you know, Richmond? When I hired Deanna, she asked me, when are you all coming out to Antioch, where Deanna's from? So, you know, we've grown really, again, through this process of listening to see how we can be of service to the community.
Yeah, no, that's like amazing. And I feel you there. Like, when are you coming out to Antioch? I feel that. So for the El Tímpano community, where are the majority of El Tímpano's immigrants from? Do you guys keep that statistic or those statistics so you can kind of gauge where your readers are from?
Like their origin?
Yes.
We don't necessarily keep track of that. I mean, we have a pretty good idea because we also do have content in a language called Mam. So it's actually a Mayan language that isn't written. It's a spoken language. So we probably do have a lot of people from Central America, but I think we're kind of like all over the map. So we don't necessarily keep track of exactly what country did you origin from?
Yeah, no. That's I was just asking that question because it's fascinating seeing how diverse a network really is. Because you can have like a Salvadorian cousin with a Guatemalan cousin, and he's like letting his people know, like, hey, I'm getting my news here, and it's in, you know, all of these different languages. It's not just in this. It's not in Spaniard Spanish. So that's another thing that I would think is a super barrier is. Spaniard Spanish is not the only Spanish anymore, and I feel like that needs to get taught also in more schools, and it needs to get taught to more communities. That is a difference. Now, why is it difficult for not just immigrants, but just the Latin community? Why is it so hard to get that real cultural news from just the major news outlets?
That's a great question. I mean, they're historically, marginalized communities, whether we're talking about immigrants, whether we're talking about, you know, other communities of color, whether we're talking about, you know, low income communities, you know, those communities have not been well served by the mainstream media. And partly that comes down to the business model. Most mainstream media traditionally has been commercial. And so, you know, if you're not a great target for advertisers, then you're not going to be the audience that the news outlets are really going to try to serve. You know, so, and in, you know, in the Bay Area, and this is true, I think, of most metropolitan areas in the country, there are just a very tiny handful of Spanish language media outlets. And those are mostly broadcast, you know, are the major commercial broadcast news of Univision and Telemundo. You know, when we did survey residents and we asked them, and those are the two ones that really kept coming up. And yet, you know, those channels, they broadcast about a half an hour of local news every day. And so one of the things that we heard from community members was that the news that they get from there is not local enough. It's not informative enough. And, you know, how could it be when they're covering a 9-county metropolitan region? You know, one thing that people also said is that I'm avoiding the news because it just causes panic. It just leaves me in fear. That was a really common response that we heard from residents who said that, the news, it only covers attacks on my community without giving me information that I can actually use to take action. And so, that's why we've really tried through our model to provide what we call actionable information, news that can help people, not just be aware of what's going on, but equip them with information that they can use to engage, whether that's like, there's going to be a town hall on this issue where you can actually meet your city council person and have your voice heard. Or if you're being affected by, mental health, here's a number that you can call to receive some help.
Deanna, do you have any take on that?
I mean, Madeline covered most of it, but yeah, I think it's that because the news that they're consuming isn't local, right? It's great. Our platform is a two-way communication, so we're not necessarily like worried about like clickbait, what's going to get us like most funding. We want to make sure that the news that we are providing or the resources that we are providing to the community is relevant to them, and they can basically it could be actionable, right? Similar to what you said during the storms, right? People wanted to know, where do I go? Right? What do I do? Or my house is flooded. I need assistance, right? So it's kind of like more immediate type of resources that we're providing. And there's always going to be like large platforms, right? But similar, right? We're connecting with community partners and they don't have like funding, right? A big marketing funding to advertise like Nike or Supreme, right? To get out there. But that's where we kind of come in, right? We want to know, for example, like the program that you're doing in this building, right? That's very valuable, right? That can help a lot of youth. And there's probably a lot of parents that aren't aware of it. But that's where we kind of come in and say, like, we can get this information out to them so they can come and receive those types of resources that they're looking for.
So it's not just local. It's like, hey, we right here. We got the resources. We spread it out to the communities, and it's not like it's not false news. That's a really big one. I know that a lot of individuals, especially my family, like my grandma, she won't watch Chrome 4 anymore. She's like, it's scary because again, it causes panic. And then same thing like with my mom. She's like, no, I don't trust the news. So hearing that there is a Spanish speaking and even a Mayan speaking news outlet that is SMS kind of only, but also I know you guys have social media, but SMS based, that is a huge difference because I can see how text messaging, especially like a quick text, would be received a lot more welcoming than just someone kind of yelling at you on the TV.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very intimate relationship that we have with our audience. So it's kind of the opposite of mass media. We do send out our texts to hundreds or thousands of people, but we always invite people to respond. We say, what other questions do you have on this subject, or how have you been affected by XYZ? And when they respond, it's then a one-on-one conversation. And so, people know our staff by name. They know El Tímpano. They respond to us just like they were responding to a text from a cousin.
Okay, that's cool. So how would you say the community finds out about El Tímpano? Like the quickest, or what was the most effective way El Tímpano really got out there into the community?
I think it's just being kind of meeting them where they're at. So right now we have a colleague out in Antioch at a grocery store. Shout out to Attell. Like just doing the groundwork. And Madeline did a great job just doing the groundwork as well in the beginning, right? But then after that, it's just kind of like a trickle effect of like, kind of like what you were saying, like, hey, how did you find out about this program, or how did you find out about this resource? And then they tell their cousin, their mom, they go to church, right? They tell their family members. Hopefully they're telling teachers. And my main job actually is meeting like with local leaders, other CBOs, and to making sure that we're also present in those kind of spaces to also spread the word about what we're doing.
I might have to set you up a meeting with my padrino, because he is... He has an organization not too far from here, and it's super heavy based in the spiritual healing aspect of Oakland, or of the East Bay.
Nice.
So Does your community come to you more than just news? Like, do they ask you to come to their events, or do they ask you to like hang out, things of that nature?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we definitely, I certainly kind of had a vision, an idea of what El Tímpano would be, but, then it's kind of become something that belongs to the community, and it's evolved because of that. And there have been kind of surprises for me in terms of just how it is perceived or what we are doing. One of those things is we've noticed a lot of our subscribers really see El Tímpano in some way as like a 311 service.
Okay.
This is a source that they know they can trust and go to if they have a question or if they're looking for a particular resource. So people have texted us if there's, a water main break on their street and they don't know who to call or what to report that to, they'll text El Tímpano and ask. So that's why it's so important for us to develop relationships with different community resources, government agencies, city leaders, so that we can really direct people to, the right agency to call or to assets within their own communities. The other thing I'll say is, we just like to be where people are at to kind of build awareness, continue to develop relationships with the community. We have on the subject of misinformation, we've developed a workshop to really train community members to understand what misinformation is, how they can identify it, and just some basic steps that they can do, because they can really be the first line of defense to prevent the spread of misinformation in their communities. So we have been invited to schools, to promotoras groups, to different grassroots organizations to provide that workshop.
That's awesome. Yeah. I remember I did a workshop back in high school that was about misinformation, especially misinformation when it comes to browsing the web. And there's a lot of telltale signs. So I can definitely see how that workshop is super beneficial, especially for community members and our community elders at that. The community elders are the ones who probably can utilize it the most, not just the youngins, but our elders.
Definitely.
So how do you make sure the community is getting the help it needs? I know you said like, hey, if there's a water main break on someone's street and they text you, how does that information then get dispersed as far as, hey, on this street, it's something going on?
That's a really great question. And I think it gets to one of the other aspects of our work that we haven't really touched upon, which is producing in-depth journalism to really amplify the voices of the communities that we're in relationship with. We really try to equip community members with the information so that they themselves can, call that agency or go to that event or utilize a resource. But we very often hear from residents, hey, the phone number that you gave me, like, it just goes straight to voicemail. No one's called me back. We heard a lot of that, in kind of the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of the information that we were providing folks was to help prevent displacement, because so many people were writing to us sharing that, they just got an eviction notice, or they're months behind on rent. And so we were directing them to opportunities for emergency, rental assistance. And we heard so many challenges from community members about applying for those resources and actually accessing them. And so we wrote a report about the barriers that Latino immigrants have faced in accessing these relief programs. So we do also produce in-depth journalism, primarily that's in English, really for a different audience, but really to amplify the voices and stories of Latino and Mayan immigrants so that it does reach stakeholders. We're also a part of a number of different community coalitions where we can speak directly to, staff of the local public health agency or, other city leaders and share back to them what we're hearing from our community.
Okay. How do you guys see El Tímpano growing in the future? Like just a snapshot of the next 5 years. What would the 5th year kind of look like?
Yeah, so we're growing in a few really exciting ways. One thing that we touched on is just growing beyond Oakland.
Mhm.
So, as you can hear, that growth and the way we really kind of meet people is it's very kind of on the ground, resource intensive, like tabling at a grocery store, making an announcement at a church service. So that's a very slow and intentional growth. So that takes a lot of resources to do that and to really kind of meet community members across the Bay Area where they're at. So that's what we're working to do. We're right now focusing on growing, beyond Oakland in Contra Costa County. But again, we also have subscribers across the Bay Area. So we want to grow to really meet them where they're at, build relationships with other community organizations there. The other way we're growing is really by building a newsroom to be the trusted source of, quality news coverage, not just for, but also about Latino and Mayan immigrants in the Bay Area. And then, the third aspect of our growth is we hear from a lot of organizations, a lot of news outlets, but also community-based organizations, advocacy organizations across the country who really want to learn from our model or have shared with us how inspired they are by our strategies of, reaching and engaging Latino immigrants. And so we really want to build the capacity to be able to better support other organizations to sort of do that work, to have a greater impact just across the field and across the country.
Okay. Deanna, do you have any take on that as far as future growth for the organization?
For me, just in my position, obviously, when it comes to just diversifying our revenue, making sure we have the capacity to reach more people. So that's kind of like my mindset when it comes to 5 years, just making sure we're still stable, still going strong, and hopefully just being able to do work in like we've done in Alameda County, and just do it in tenfold in other counties.
Awesome. Now, I know you spoke about that one workshop. Do you guys have any more? Do you guys have a plethora of workshops? Are there any more programs that you think might be added into El Tímpano in the future? I know you talked about adding more, but do you see it maybe having its own buildings in the next 5 years, or do you see obviously revenue streams? Do you see more staff, more people involved, things of that nature?
Definitely, I think more staff, because we have several hats that we're wearing right now, especially Madeline, switching hats here and there. But I think hopefully we can get a building right for our newsroom. I think something that would be really nice, just a space that we can kind of just all gather, because right now we're all remote. And then I hope to just meet more people. And just grow everywhere, honestly.
Do you want to talk about our Facebook Live?
Yes. So that I don't think necessarily we'll do direct services, right? That's not what that's not our mission. But we want to make sure that we are connecting people to other programs. So inviting people, we're doing a Facebook Live, right? So we've done a few already, and just making sure that people are hearing about the other programs that are happening in the community, in Spanish or in Mom. And that's just definitely one of our services, and we hope that it grows, right? Having a social media presence is obviously going to bring in more people, besides just meeting people where they're at.
Yeah, we're still a very small organization. So we've grown, in just over a year, we've grown from just one full-time staff member to 6.
Okay.
And that's still a tiny organization. So there's definitely a lot of ways to grow just to achieve our mission. And, we have innovation at our core. So we're constantly listening to our audience, to our community, to think through, how can we do a better job serving you? We actually have an open position that we just posted this week for a special projects manager. And that's really to kind of take our community engagement to the next level, by partnering with artists, with scientists, with researchers to engage Latino and Mayan immigrants in different ways to tell their stories or to produce meaningful data and research. So we have funding to develop a civic science initiative. We want to collaborate more with artists to tell the stories and really amplify the stories of Latino and Mayan immigrants. So yeah, in my mind, there's an infinite number of ways we can grow, but, still within our mission of, informing, engaging, and amplifying the stories of Latino and Mayan immigrants.
That sounds wonderful. Now, as I told you guys before, this building is super youth run, super youth led. Will there be positions for maybe young people to maybe intern with you guys, or for young people to maybe work with you guys? Because as you know, young people are the forefront of the train, especially in nonprofit work. So would that be available to young people?
We hope so. Again, it's like, I think, a capacity thing right now. Obviously doing like volunteer management, volunteer recruitment, that's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely think that that's a huge possibility. And we hope that we do have that in the near future.
Again, thank you guys so much for coming here and sharing not only your stories, but sharing a little bit about yourselves and the organization and overall kind of where it's going. I can confidently say I'm happy to work with you as a partner, especially here at HHREC, and I look forward to everything that we can do together in order to not only strengthen the Latin community, but to also make sure they're getting that qualitative and true, honest news. So, guys, thank you so much for coming here and, again, being here and talking with me.
Thank you, Robert. Really appreciate it. And we definitely look forward to continuing to partner with you in the future.
Yes, thank you so much, Robert. And anybody out there listening, if you want to receive our messaging, they just have to text Ola to a phone number. So it was 510-800-8305. So really simple. We would love to inform other folks.
And for those who are listening, if you want to know more about El Tímpano, we will add their website in our description below. And if you have any other questions, you can email us at our HHREC website. Thank you.